long ago, in the land of Israel, fear walked the streets. The people were tired, beaten, and broken. For 20 long years, they lived under the heavy hand of their enemies, the Canaanites. Villages were silent, roads were empty, and hope seemed far away. The Israelites had once been a mighty nation, led by God Himself. But now, they were hiding in fear. Their enemies were too strong. Their weapons were too few. Their hearts were too weak. And in the middle of this dark season, God chose an unlikely leader. Not a king, not a soldier, not even a man with a sword in his hand. Instead, God raised a woman, wise, faithful, and bold. Her name was Deborah. Deborah was a prophetess, a judge, and a mother in Israel. She did not lead with weapons, but with wisdom. She did not rule with fear, but with faith. And through her, God would bring freedom to His people once again. This is her story. A story of courage when courage was missing. A story of faith when fear filled the land. A story of victory when defeat looked certain. Stay with us as we walk through the incredible life of Deborah. The story begins with pain. Israel had turned away from God. They had forgotten His laws, abandoned His ways, and chased after false gods. And because of this, God allowed them to fall under the rule of King Jabin of Canaan. Jabin's commander was a man named Sisera. He was known for his cruelty, his power, and his army of 900 iron chariots. These chariots were the tanks of the ancient world, fast, heavy, and deadly. Against them, the Israelites stood no chance. For 20 years, Sisera's army crushed the people. They took their crops, their freedom, their joy. The Israelites could not fight back. Their fear was greater than their faith. But in their suffering, they cried out to God. And God, full of mercy, heard their cry. He answered not with a sword, but with a woman, Deborah. Deborah was different. She was not only a prophetess, hearing from God, but also a judge for the people. She sat under a palm tree in the hill country of Ephraim, between Ramah and Bethel. Day after day, people came to her for wisdom. They brought their disputes, their questions, their fears, and she gave them answers from God. She was known for her fairness, her courage, and her deep faith. She stood like a light in the middle of darkness. And when the people were lost, she reminded them of God's promises. But Deborah was more than a counselor. She was God's chosen leader, and soon, her role would change from judge to deliverer. One day, Deborah received a message from God. It was clear, strong, and full of power. God told her, "Call Barak, son of Abinoam, from the tribe of Naphtali. Tell him to take 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun and go to Mount Tabor. There I will bring Sisera and his army to the Kishon River, and I will give them into your hands." So Deborah sent for Barak. He came, but when he heard God's command, he hesitated. Fear filled his heart. He looked at Sisera's 900 chariots and saw no chance of victory. And so Barak said something unexpected. He told Deborah, "If you go with me, I will go. But if you do not go with me, I will not go." Barak wanted Deborah's presence. He wanted her faith to cover his fear. He wanted her courage to strengthen his weakness. Deborah answered firmly, yet kindly. "I will go with you. But know this, the honor will not be yours. For the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." Deborah and Barak began to gather the men of Naphtali and Zebulun. Word spread quickly. 10,000 men were called to arms. For years they had been afraid, but now, with Deborah's faith leading the way, they found new courage. Deborah encouraged them. She reminded them of God's faithfulness in the past. She told them that God, not human strength, would win this battle. Slowly, the men began to believe. Together, they marched toward Mount Tabor. But still, fear was there. The men were simple farmers, not trained soldiers. Their weapons were nothing compared to iron chariots. Yet with every step, they chose faith over fear. The day of battle arrived. Barak and his 10,000 men stood on Mount Tabor. Below them stretched Sisera's mighty army. Chariots gleamed in the sun, soldiers filled the plains, and the ground shook with the sound of war. The Israelites looked down and trembled. But Deborah stood tall. She turned to Barak and declared, "Go. This is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone before you?" With those words, faith rose in Barak's heart. He led his men down the slopes, charging into battle. At first, it seemed impossible. But then, something miraculous happened. Dark clouds gathered, and the sky broke open with heavy rain. The ground turned into mud. Sisera's iron chariots, once powerful, now sank into the earth. Horses stumbled, wheels stuck, soldiers panicked. God himself was fighting for Israel. The Israelites attacked with all their strength. Sisera's army collapsed. The men of Israel shouted with victory, and the Canaanite soldiers scattered in fear. But Sisera, the commander, escaped on foot. He left his chariot behind and ran for his life. Exhausted and desperate, he came to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Jael came out to meet him and welcomed him inside. "Come in, my lord. Do not be afraid," she said kindly. She covered him with a blanket, gave him milk to drink, and promised to hide him. Sisera, tired and trusting, fell into a deep sleep. But Jael had another plan. Quietly, she took a hammer and a tent peg, the tools of her home. She moved close to Sisera as he slept. And with one strong blow, she drove the peg through his temple, killing him instantly. The mighty commander of Canaan was dead, defeated not by an army, but by the hand of a woman. Soon after, Barak arrived. Jael came out and said, "Come, I will show you the man you are looking for." Inside, Barak found Sisera dead, just as Deborah had prophesied. With Sisera gone and the Canaanite army destroyed, Israel was free. But Deborah did not stop with victory. She lifted her voice in a song to the Lord. Her song told the story of Israel's suffering, their fear, and God's mighty deliverance. She called herself a mother in Israel, reminding the people that God had used her, not as a warrior, but as a leader filled with faith. She praised the tribes that came to fight, and she rebuked those who stayed behind. She celebrated Jael, calling her blessed among women for her courage. She spoke of how the heavens fought, how the stars and the river Kishon worked against Sisera. And she ended with a prayer, "Let those who love the Lord be like the sun when it rises in strength. But let all his enemies perish." For 40 years, Israel lived in peace, all because one woman dared to trust God. Lessons for us. Deborah's story is more than history. It is a reminder for us today. She shows us that God can use anyone, man or woman, strong or weak, if they are willing to trust him. Deborah did not fight with a sword. She fought with faith. Barak was weak, but God used him when he obeyed. Jael was unexpected, but God used her courage to finish the battle. This story teaches us that victory does not come from human power, but from God's hand. It shows us that faith and obedience matter more than fear and doubt. So when life feels too heavy, when problems look too big, remember Deborah. Remember Barak. Remember Jael. And most of all, remember the God who fights for his people. If this story inspired you, imagine the countless others waiting to be discovered. The Bible is full of stories of courage, faith, and God's amazing power. So join us again as we bring more of these stories to life. Don't forget to subscribe, share this video, and stay connected. And always remember, no matter how dark it gets, God's plan always wins.